Hello and welcome to Rep Geek. I am your host, Belle Diepa. I have a very fun video for you guys today. So, the Snow White trailer just dropped yesterday. And although I had my hesitancies before the trailer, I am super on board with the new Snow White movie, and I'm going to explain in this video why you should also give the new Snow White movie a chance. So, when I was a child, Snow White was my very first favorite ever Disney princess. And that was in part because I caught a case of lice and they had to cut my hair really short and I cried a lot. And my family was like, oh my God, you look like Snow White. Look, she has short hair. I know you can't explain logic to a 5-year-old. Now, within my family, I am considered fair skinned. I am Puerto Rican, and my grandmother, she was black and white Puerto Rican. And so my entire family is very mixed race, as am I. My mother is far darker than I am, and she has very straight hair, whereas I have curly hair. Anyway, the point is, although I never felt like, I was better than anyone, I didn't have that type of colorism. I was made painfully aware how my lighter skin gave me a privilege and how I would be treated. And even my grandmother would tell me all the time, she'd say, oh, you're so lucky because you have lighter skin. Now, living in Puerto Rico, I was considered to be light skin, lighter skin. When we moved from Puerto Rico to the United States, that was a whole other story when it came to skin. I was considered to be like darker, or there was a wide range. But what's really interesting is when Rachel Zegler, who was also a Latina, was cast as Snow White, there was a lot of uproar over the fact that she wasn't white and that the meaning of Snow White, she was supposed to be the fairest in the land. How is she the fairest in the land? And what's really wonderful about language and that I really love is that when it comes to the word fair, there are three versions of it. There's fair, as in fair, beautiful, fair, as in fair skin, light skinned, or fair, as in just. And what this new Snow White does is it actually plays on that last meaning of the word. This Snow White is the fairest in the land. She is the most just. She is the most compassionate. And that is such a great way to look at that story. Now, first of all, I think that it's important to remember that there have been many different iterations of Snow White, not only as far as films go, but also as far as ancient stories. There's an Italian version of Snow White, there's the Brothers Grimm version of Snow White. I believe that there is a Chinese version of the story of Snow White. There are multiple different variants and versions of the story of Snow White. So there's a lot of different stories that Disney could take from. And to be honest, I prefer for Disney to do a new take on an old story than to do the scene for scene remake as they've done with past live action movies. Now, I am not the biggest Disney live action fan, with the exception of Maleficent, the Alice in Wonderland movies, and Cinderella. And I really liked The Little Mermaid, but that was mostly because I really liked Halle Bailey. I really didn't care for a remake scene by scene. I wanted to see something a little different. In theory, a scene by scene retelling of our favorite movies might sound like a good idea, but in practice, it really didn't do much for me or for a lot of people. And from what I understand, a lot of parents that have children would also show their kids the animated show, the animated version that they grew up with. And I'd actually argue that many people aren't the biggest fans of the original character of Snow White. And I say this because in multiple polls, when people look at who their favorite Disney princess is, Snow White always comes in last. And mind you, I love my girl. I do really love Snow White. I think that the original princess has a lot of really great qualities. She's kind and she is courageous. She runs away from the queen when she's going to be murdered. But I think that a lot of parents maybe don't want their daughters to grow up thinking that their happily ever after only comes when a man or a prince comes by and rescues them. They want their daughters to be autonomous. They want their daughters to be strong and successful. And I think that, that is a good thing as a person who is a daughter and grew up to be a very independent adult woman. So in this new retelling, Snow White is the fairest in the land, and she's really fighting against these archaic notions of like what a woman should be. Whereas the evil queen is incredibly vain and she focuses on her looks and on her beauty. And that's still the most important thing to her, and that her looks and her beauty will give her power. What Snow White focuses on is on being kind. And by being kind and fair and generous and courageous, people love her for who she is, for her character. And I think that's pretty awesome. And I think that a story that has to do with that is really great. So I really want to give this new Snow White a chance. Now, am I going to have to think, do a little bit of imagination flexing when it comes to the seven dwarves and their CGI faces? Yes, because they look really weird. However, I do applaud Disney for deciding to take the story in a different way. And also, this isn't the first time that Disney has done a different take on Snow White. I'm a huge fan of the show Once Upon a Time. If you like Once Upon a Time, please let me know in the comments because I am a huge, huge fan of Once Upon a Time and I will talk to anyone about that show. But even there, I love the way that Regina the Queen and Snow White had their own individual stories and how it wasn't black and white. It was more nuanced. And I think that audiences really want that more. So those are my thoughts, but let me know what you think. Are you going to go see Snow White? Are you interested in seeing the new Snow White? If you don't like it, that's fine, but let's be kind to each other. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. But if you like this video and you like other videos, please be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your friends. Maybe I have helped change your mind about the new Snow White film and you want to check it out too. All right, bye.